Hello, it's Andrew Eborn here with another edition of the Andrew Eborn Show, and I'm joined by my very special guest, Mike Reed. How are you, Mike?
I'm one of many very special guests you have, and I'm delighted to be one of them.
Well, you are the best special guest we ever had, and not only have I been enjoying your radio show of a morning, yesterday I tuned in to BBC4, and there you were in your glory in the 80s, smart haircuts. You know, there's no long hair or anything, no glasses. What was going on?
I don't know. I was surprised. What surprised me was that Gabachine and myself wrote it.
Oh, amazing.
We get hired and we go in and present the program. But we actually, it was written and presented by my very cool Gabachine. So I can't remember exactly what we did or how we compiled it, but it was packed full of all the acts of the 80s. So it really was a sort of carousel for 60 minutes with everyone whose records you ever bought or ever played. So yeah, it was good. No, I was surprised because I had neat, rather short hair, a t-shirt on, no glasses. I thought, I obviously went for a different image because, you know, whenever you do Top of the Pops, you go, what should we do here? Oh, let's wear black tie tonight, or I'm going to slip my hair back tonight, or I'm going to wear shades and a leather jacket, or it was always, you know, what should we dress as? You'd go to Johnson's in the King's Road, you know, before the show, think, I'll go and pick something up to wear tonight, and there'd be, you know, a member of the Jam, a member of the Eurythmics in there. Oh, no, mate, all looking for something, and they had nice Top of the Pops.
But it looks sensational. As you say, it was a carousel we didn't want to get off, you know, that every single one was a hit. And even though you had like a little snippet of it, it was superb. You know, fantastic trip down memory lane.
Yeah, it was. We went through year by year with some live tracks in between, people in the studio, which made it, you know, like a live show, not just a compilation show. But yeah, even when you only got 15 seconds of somebody major, it was okay because you went on to somebody else major and somebody else major. So it was, there were no complaints about it. I mean, but it's very, very difficult to pack 10 years into 60 minutes. You know, you don't have much time, you know. 6 minutes of, you know, 6 minutes a year, or whatever it is. I mean, that's it. You know, you've got one song with 3 minutes, and the rest you got to pack in there. So, yeah, it's difficult to choose. I mean, and you know, some things were left out. Some people came in more than once, you know, joined because you know what they did over the years. So, but yeah, it was great fun, great putting it together. I remember. Now, at the time, I thought I didn't remember that, but as I watched it, you remember more and more of it.
Right. And how long ago did you record that?
That was recorded at the end of probably Christmas '89.
Right.
Because it's looked back over the previous decade.
Oh, fantastic. And at the moment, I mean, we're talking about heritage artists and things like that, but there's a massive resurgence. I mean, the appeal of the 80s is going on forever. And why do you think the 80s was such a popular era?
It was interesting. Quite a few things came together. People were still writing great songs. People were still writing different songs. There were different production values. Technology started kicking in like the 70s, and then later on. In the 80s, it became the beginning of the video age, really, with MTV. So virtually every song had a video, as well as the song. So that heralded an amazing difference. But it was still very broad in terms of music. You know, in the chart, you could have the Jam next to Orville the Duck, next to Iron Maiden, next to Spandau Ballet, next to Kim Wilde. I mean, it was then a reggae track. You know, it was still very, very broad. Nobody was trying to be cool. People accepted a record there. Oh, no, they're too keen on that, but they accepted it as part of the chart. And technology was really kicking in, so you could do things that you couldn't do before with music, but people were still writing great songs. I think after the 80s, for me, there were still a lot of good songs, but not as many great in one era as there had been in the 80s. So it was the combination of people still writing great songs, a variation in styles, new technology kicking in, which helped everybody, and videos as well. So it was a very, very good time for music.
Oh, fantastic. And as you say, the music videos were superb. But artists would spend an absolute fortune on music videos, wouldn't they, in those days?
Yeah, I remember one guy said, oh, you know, we flew out to such and such an island and sat around the hotel for a week. I mean, money to burn then. And we thought, you know, the art school dance is going to go on forever. but it didn't. I mean, they were offering big money to groups and big money for videos as well. They'd sit around in a hotel on a desert island and think of an idea. You know, let's go on the boat. Oh, let's go down on the beach. You know, I was did a video for David Essex, song "The Family" we did with David. And somebody said, "Oh, it's going to cost X." And I thought, no, it's not. This was a 4-day shoot. And I thought, no, mate, it's a 1-day shoot. So I went down there. The more pre-prep you do, the cheaper it is. We hit all the posts during the day, and we did it in 1 day and got it done equally well. Rather than sitting around and having a break, let's have a tea break, you know, let's all go and sit by the river and think about it for half an hour. You know, right. I didn't do that.
But they certainly, I mean, for some of them, they were sort of feature film budgets. I mean, Michael Jackson and what he did with Thriller. You had Toya was telling me she came up with the most elaborate ideas where she'd be riding on a horse, a white horse through the forest, and then she'd climb through sea. And the production budgets must have just gone through the roof, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of money around then.
Oh, Mike, we've lost your audio. We've lost your audio on that sort of side. Even on your phone. Can we hear you? Oh, you're back again. You're back again. We lost you for a moment. I think it was the thought of production budgets. It scared them. I'm still here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Fantastic. We were just saying about production budgets and how they went through the roof, you know, I think on those sort of things. And those sort of days are gone now, aren't they?
Yeah, there was a lot of money around in the business then, and they weren't averse to spending it. But the technology hadn't quite got to where it is now. So because now you can do so much in post-production studio. You know, if you wanted to snow, then you probably had to hire a snow machine and stuff like that. Now someone says, "Oh, no, we'll put snow in afterwards." You know, so you can do far, far more now than you ever could then. So there was a bit of spend. You had to be clever. Cutting Creed was very good at directing things and new things as well. I mean, now a lot of the videos now they just say, "Well, let's get a load of girls dancing with not much on, and we'll stick that in the video." And you think, "Yeah, okay, it's not that creative." But back then, like the music, the videos were very, very different and very creative. They were thinking of ideas. What could they do? You know, remember Aha did a cartoon. They still drew them. There's this fast-moving cartoon of them, and yeah, some clever ideas around that.
Oh, Take On Me was superb, and I think each artist was trying to outdo each other, weren't they? I mean, Take On Me was superb with Aha. I love the Michael Jackson video with Thriller, and he got Spielberg involved for that one as well, didn't he?
That's right. I mean, everyone tried to spur each other. You know, you were spurred on by other people. Really, you saw what somebody else had done. You know, if you're going back in terms of music, you know, the Beatles looked at Brian Wilson and thought, "Oh, crikey," you know, and Brian Wilson looked at the Beatles and thought, "Well, I better keep up here." You know, when John brought a new song in the studio, Paul said, "I better go home and write a better one than that." Right. So they were spurring each other on. I think the same in the 80s. People who look, they go, "Oh my goodness, have you heard their new single? Oh, we better write something really good." You know, so that's good. Competition is healthy, and it's good if it makes you, you know, do better productions, write better songs. So it's fine.
Oh, no, absolutely. And what I loved about that era as well, everybody just assumes that all the artists know each other. And so when they come together, something like Band-Aid, and we saw that glorious video in the program the other night, they all seem to get on really well. There was a nice bit of ribbing here and there, but they seem to get on really well together.
Well, I saw that the other night, and of course you were all aware of Band-Aid. We've seen it loads of times, and all the bit in the studio. But suddenly at the end of that program, I got a little emotional because all the faces there. I thought, "Oh, it's so good," and it's so good, and they're all in there together.
Oh, we've lost your audio again, Mike. I don't. Your audio keeps cutting in and out. Oh, how's that? Any luck with that one? I think we're having fun and games with it. This is what I love. We can do a show about technology, and we talk about the massive production budgets that Michael Jackson had with. Are you there? It's all right, Mike. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me? It all looks good. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a little break. And after the break, we'll come back after these important messages. I'm here live with Mike Reed talking about technology and the joys of sound. Straight back after these messages. Right, and Mike Reed's back on the line. Well, I love it. This is what we're talking about, technology and the joys of the 1980s and how technology was way ahead. And you then come back to the Zoom generation, and we lose you for a minute there, Mike, but you're back with us now. How's it going? We were talking about, yes, we were talking about Band-Aid and how incredible that was. And I had Harvey Goldsmith on the show fairly recently, and how just the whole thing started with Bob basically just blagging to everybody, if you like, that he'd already got this major artist involved and they didn't know about it. So Queen was sort of saying, I heard you on an interview, we didn't know that we were involved with this show. And then Queen were used for somebody else, and somebody else was then, they all came together at the end, which was superb, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's often the way you do it. You know, when I've done albums, you know, you want people to do the songs, and you phone the very first artist, and they say, their first question is, who else is on the album? You know, and if it's a very major artist, they're going to think, they're going to use it, using me as bait to get people for the rest of the album, whoever it is, you know, whatever the situation, like Bob or anything like that. When I did the Tsunami single, it was that, I thought, oh, well, where do I start? And then I started with Cliff, and when he said yes, then, you know, I went to the Bee Gees, and they went, oh, yeah, of course, well, Cliff, oh, Cliff. So I got Cliff and the Bee Gees, Brian Wilson, oh, Brian Wilson, oh, well, then we're away. When you got, the Bee Gees, the Beach Boys, and Cliff, then, you know, you're away. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. But I was very emotional at the end of that. I was surprised at the end of the 80s review we did, when I saw everyone, and the camera panned across, they're all singing. And I thought, this is our extended family, you know, that we all came through together. And I'm surprisingly, I found myself quite emotional when he's panning across all the faces. You go, oh, and they're all, even though you don't know them well, you're part of the same family, you know. And if you see each other, it's like, oh, hello, mate, how are you? You know, it's great. It's a bit like an old school reunion.
Oh, and totally. And when you have that major event, and it was really the start of the major events Live Aid, wasn't it? When you have those major events and artists come together, and there is that sort of camaraderie, even though you're rivals in the charts and you have a bit of ribbing and so on and so forth, there is that coming together for a common purpose, which is really rather special, a moment in history.
Yeah, and I think more so now, when you go and do the Rewind festivals and things like that, and you meet up with everybody, everyone's mellowed a little bit, and you know, people will say, oh, well, our management told us not to talk to them back in the day. So no, you know, don't mix with them, don't be photographed with them. And they were aware, everyone was very aware of their image. They all had sort of people dressing them and what they said, and they were cool. Sometimes you think, well, so-and-so's really cool, and after they said, no, I was just really shy and I didn't know what to say. But you thought they were very cool. But now everyone's mellowed a bit, and it's like, oh, well, mate, you know, and it's great. And everyone, the fact they're still out there, still enjoying it, still doing festivals together, and being on the road together is fantastic.
No, it is wonderful. And it was those sultans of spin, as we call them, the ones who like to say, well, if you want to draw a crowd, I think it was P.T. Barnum said, if you want to draw a crowd, start a fight. And so often in the industry, you're going to get two groups fighting each other, aren't you?
Yeah, you always had, you're not fighting each other, you know, you had in the 60s, various times against the Beatles. You had, you know, it was the Beatles versus the Four Seasons. There was an album and the same Beatles, and then Beatles and the Beach Boys. You know, the Beatles and the Stones, the obvious one, and then later the Beatles versus the Monkees. So it was always, you know, these songs are the next bit. So you always had that, and in the 70s, of course, you know, you had all the glam bands, you know, Slade versus Sweet, and, you know, Bowie versus Elton John. Well, not versus, but that's the way the publicity, you know, liked to work it, you know, and the Bay City Rollers are coming into the 80s, you know, Duran and Spandau were the sort of, you know, the monarchs of the Glen looking at each other, you know, and then Oasis and Blur in the 90s. So, and so it goes. Yeah, it does help. You know, if you're running in a race, if, you know, Sebastian Coe's running by himself, he's not going to run a faster time as if he's running against Steve Ovett.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you even then get rivalry within bands itself. So Oasis, as you mentioned, you get Liam and Noel famously sort of fighting it out in public. How much of that do you think is actually engineered by management, and how much is real?
I think quite a lot of it is real, surprisingly, because it's happening in so many major bands. If you look at the altercation in the Beatles between John and Paul, you know, the Beach Boys, so many the Gallaghers, of people falling out within a band, and you think, well, come on, you've had a really, really good time, quite to an extent as well. Francis and Rick, they were great, but we didn't always see eye to eye. And you think, you've all had such a wonderful life out of this, but I'm surprised that people fall out further and further as they get older, rather than building bridges and going, you know what, come on, we've had a great time. Look at all the hits we've had some fun, and we made some money, and we've done pretty well. We've done something we've enjoyed, but it seems to be not the case that people get entrenched in this sort of feeling against somebody else in the band. It's and so many former members going out with band names and bands splitting up. You can understand it in a way, because not every marriage works, as we know. Lots of them fall apart for whatever reason. Proximity differences, and you get that in the band. Sometimes you've got 4 or 5 people that are effectively, they had a lot of hits, married to each other.
Yeah. Oh no, you're absolutely right.
And the same hotel. They're seeing each other all the time. It must be like, oh, not them again.
Oh.
You've had so much success together, but you're in effect married to them in a way.
Yeah, and it is very tricky, as you say. If you're there all the time on the road, it gets really, really difficult, doesn't it? But it's quite tense, isn't it?
But also, of course, it's your living. You can't escape it.
Yeah.
It's a bit like you're something very big in the city. You've got kids at private school. You've got a big mortgage, a big house, and one time you think, I can't get off this. I want to run a cheese shop in the Cotswolds, but there's no way in the world that I can get off this carousel. And the same with groups. If you're making a lot of money, and they say Australian tour, American tour, are you going to let the other guys down? Are you going to let your family down by saying, I don't want to do it? Hang on, it's £1 million quid in your pocket. So you are inextricably tied to each other. And in some ways it's a bond, but in other ways it's not. You're thinking, I can't get out of this. The door is locked, and it's a real problem.
No, absolutely. Well, and that's why we've seen so many what I call the alimony tours, where people have to come out and basically work on that basis, make an extra $1 million. And I think we've seen a few of those, haven't we? So very interesting. Yeah. The other thing which is really interesting is this whole thing about charts and how those have evolved. Because in the 80s, I mean, how many singles did you have to sell to get to number 1?
It depends, really. I mean, certainly in the 60s, things would sell 50, 100, 150,000 a day sometimes. They would, if you look at a lot of the charts in the 60s, probably half of them $1 million sellers. I mean, they sold a lot. Simply because you couldn't get it any other way. You had already been on the radio, but you couldn't stream, you couldn't download, so you had to go and physically buy it if you wanted to hear it. And a lot of time you couldn't have music on all day. Even the past on who were fantastic. If you're at school, if you're at work, you probably couldn't listen to it. Now our lifestyle has changed. People are in the cars all the time. They're at work. They can listen in their headphones. They can put stuff in their ears. Now it's easier to listen all the time. But then it wasn't. So you had to go and buy physical product, and that's what we've grown up with, buying physical product, which was a real key factor. And we've all grown up with the chart. You mentioned charts. We've all grown up. Every artist said, where am I this week? You're at number 12. Oh, okay. Do you think we'll go up next week? And it was a measure of your success. If you had a number 1, you wanted the next one to be number 1. If you got to number 4, well, it's okay. But everybody knew what was in the chart, and it was the rule of thumb. It was like, where are we in the chart? It was important.
Absolutely. And as listeners, it was a water cooler moment, wasn't it? You'd wait around at that time of the week and just listen to the whole charts and where they're going to be, and compulsive viewing.
Yeah. Oh no, it was, and people knew and still do where things were in the chart. In quizzes now, because that was number 12. What got to anything in 10 years? I don't know. I like some of the songs, but I haven't got a clue where they got to in the chart. What's in the chart this week? A lot of young people don't even know that, because there's no Top of the Pops. You have to go looking for the chart or listen to it on the radio, because you probably won't, maybe not see it written down anywhere. Certainly no Top of the Pops. So there's no real shop window for it. I mean, I think that's essential, to have a shop window.
And you're right, the shop window is not just one shop window where you had Top of the Pops, but you also had other programs like Pop Quiz, which would reinforce that message throughout the week.
Yeah, they did. If I was playing something on the breakfast show, when I went into TV Centre, they'd say, who are you playing at the moment? I said, well, you start saying, Aha, Howard Jones, Wham, Nick Kershaw. They go, oh, well, can we get them on Saturday morning? So, of course, as well as the Radio 1 Breakfast Show, you'd have 10 million watching you on Saturday morning. You'd be coming on playing live, and you thought, well, we got, every time you play it on the breakfast show, it's like 14 hear it, and every time there's 10 million, then you come up with another 10 million. So it really built up. It was very important. And luckily, rather bizarrely, artists were trying to get on songs of praise rather than Top of the Pops because it was getting bigger ratings. And who'd have thought? I mean, who'd have thought when Top of the Pops was big and all the kids were going, oh, my parents watched that Strictly Come Dancing thing, that ballroom dancing thing, not many ratings, but Top of the Pops was about 18 million. Who'd have thought the ballroom dancing would far outstrip Top of the Pops in the end? 10 million watching Strictly and under 1 million watching Top of the Pops.
It is incredible. And talking about how the industry's changed, I mean, launching an artist now, we spoke earlier about the big production values of the music videos, how you could launch yourself as an artist. It's all changed a bit now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's very difficult for artists to do anything. You have to be prepackaged. You have to go to the record companies, such as they are, with everything done virtually. They don't spend money on marketing anymore like they used to. They believe in an act for 5, 6, 7, even 8 singles and 2 albums. No, we believe in you. We're going to keep putting money into you. We believe we can make you a success. Now, they wouldn't dream of that. One single, that doesn't happen. Sorry, mate, that's it. Even with major artists, they drop a major artist if the album doesn't do very well. So it's an extraordinary scenario now. Yeah.
And it's really tricky. I mean, we spoke about the charts as well, and some major artists. I was looking at people who are now chums on your program on BBC4, looking back at the 80s, and some of those are producing some fantastic music at the moment, but very, very few places are playing it. Why is that?
I don't know. Radio seems to have changed. It seems to be trying desperately to appeal to young people. There was a book commission recently that I wrote the introduction for, and it was how the BBC win and woo young viewers and listeners back. And my 2 pages of rhetoric basically said, bother, because you're going to fall between 2 stools.
Right.
You try and win young people to BBC local radio, and you're going to lose the old people and not win the young people. It's very strange. Radio 2 now certainly. And they turn down a lot of music where they go, oh yeah, it's a great song, but we're not going to play it because it's not what we play at the moment, which I don't quite get. And some of the big corporates as well, the Bowers, the Globals, the Magic, Absolute, they play a very sort of pretty tight playlist. So heritage artists with new music have really got nowhere to go. I realised a few weeks ago, there's nowhere to go. They're making great music, they always have been, they've got a big fan base, but they have to find a way, as well as social media and YouTube, to market that. YouTube doesn't bring them in any money, so they've been wary about doing that. So it's like, where do they go to earn a living, especially at the moment when they can't play live? They've got a real problem.
Yeah. So what it needs is maybe somebody who might do a heritage chart. Can you think of anybody?
I can think of one station, United DJs Radio, that started one a couple of weeks ago. It was born out of a conversation between Limal and myself a few weeks ago, when I listened to his song. I said, this is a great song. He said, Radio 2 won't touch it and no one else will play it. I said, but it's very good. You must be so frustrated. He said, I can't tell you. And then I talked to some other artists who said the same thing. They said, we've got material out that we think is very strong. When I listened to it, I thought, oh my goodness me, Howard Jones is a fantastic single out. Right Said Fred. Dion has the most fantastic album. Track with Paul Simon about Sam Cooke. Wonderful.
Absolutely superb. Yeah, and so I had the first time I heard Limal's single, and he's been talking to me about that for a little while, was on your show, on the breakfast show, which you do on United DJ, and it's superb. And is that currently #1 in the Heritage chart? It was the last time I looked.
Limal's #1, and there's a new chart going out today, Sunday, which is interesting. And what's good as well is that the artists who say to their followers, go, where can we hear your song? You hear it on this station. Yeah. So it's sort of pulling listeners in that way. But it's great. It's also a great calling card for the artists, because several of them came through and said, oh, could we, do you mind if we print up a copy of the show? No, not at all. Right. And they love it because it's a promotional tool for them. They can put it on their website and go, look, we're in the chart. We're at number whatever it is in the chart, which is fantastic. And they can then take it to other radio stations and say, look, this station is playing. Look how high we are in this chart. Why aren't you playing it? So it's good from that point of view. It's good, a good calling card. I brought Neil Fox in, Dr. Fox, to present it. So I sort of put it together every week, and yeah, some great stuff, some great music around. Yeah, really good.
Absolutely superb. And as you say, giving people that spotlight again, because it's such a shame, such a shame. So much talent is otherwise falling through the cracks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For them, we've got a shop window, we've got a physical chart we can see, we can use those things. And we're talking about some other stuff at the moment I can't mention, which will help even more. So yeah, it's looking good. I think it's that sort of, it's that time. I was talking to a friend of mine in business the other day, and we were sort of plotting something, and he said it's that time when everybody suddenly realizes there's a big gap, like he did with Caroline and the Pirates. Suddenly realized, hang on, there's a really big gap here, and in-swept the Pirates. Yeah. I think that's the case here, where people come up with an idea at a similar time and go, oh, yeah, hang on, yes, this is what we need, and everyone agrees. You're not pushing the boulder uphill.
No, absolutely. Well, Mike, it's an absolute pleasure. Nostalgia ain't what it used to be, but we absolutely love. Congratulations on the Heritage Show. Congratulations on the BBC 4 thing. I thought it was sensational, and looking forward to seeing lots more.
Okay, thanks, Andrew, as always. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.